Andre Cole was 38 years old when a stranger pulled up to his brother's driveway and made the worst miscalculation of his life. The man's name was Desmond Holt, 6'2", expensively dressed, the kind of man who had never once been told no and believed that made him powerful. Desmond had been sleeping with Andre's wife for nearly 2 years. She was carrying his child, and he had come to deliver that information personally, the way men like him always do, expecting the other man to shrink. He looked at Andre, a quiet electrician in work clothes, hands still, saying nothing, and saw exactly what he wanted to see. He issued his challenge with a smile. Andre accepted, without raising his voice. What happened in that church parking lot that evening lasted less than 5 seconds. Desmond arrived with 2 friends and a phone to record what he was certain would be a humiliation. He left on the ground, briefly unconscious, staring up at the sky while Andre straightened his shirt. Because what Desmond never bothered to ask, never once considered asking, was who Andre Cole actually was. 3rd degree, 20 years, and that was only the beginning of what Desmond didn't know. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The floor held him the way nothing else could. Andre Cole lay flat on his back, in the middle of the living room, arms loose at his sides, palms up, still wearing his steel-toed boots and the gray work shirt with his name stitched above the pocket. 12 hours on a commercial rewire in a building where the original electrician should have lost his license. 12 hours of pulling wire through conduit that fought him every inch. His shoulders ached. His lower back hummed with a deep, spreading heat. But the floor was cool, and the house was quiet. And if he just stayed here long enough, the day would drain out of him like water through a pipe. He breathed in through his nose, held it, let it go slow. The living room was dark, except for the light above the stove bleeding in from the kitchen. Everything in the house was clean. Brianna kept it that way. She had a system for the surfaces. The pillows on the couch arranged just so. The magazines fanned on the coffee table like they lived in a catalog. He never touched them. He respected her systems even when he did not fully understand them. No dinner on the counter tonight. No plate wrapped in foil. No note. That happened sometimes. More often lately. He told himself it was the new job. Senior account manager at a firm that kept her in meetings until 7, 8, sometimes 9 o'clock. She was building something. He understood building things. From where he lay, he could see the front door and the row of hooks mounted on the wall beside it. His car keys on the first hook. His work badge on the second. And on the third, hanging by its knotted tail, a faded blue belt, the color so washed out from years of sweat and washing that it looked almost white in the low light. He had earned that belt at 22. The purple came after. Then the brown. Then the black. 3 degrees of black now, each one tested on the mat by men who wanted to prove he did not deserve it. 20 years of practice. 20 years of learning that the body's first instinct is almost always wrong, that panic grabs, that fear stiffens, and that the man who stays calm in a bad position is the man who walks off the mat standing. He did not talk about it much. Brianna had come to one tournament early in the marriage, sat in the bleachers with her arms folded, and told him afterward that it looked like very aggressive cuddling. He laughed. She never came to another one. That was fine. It was his thing. Everyone needed a thing that was just theirs. On the mantel above the fireplace, centered between 2 small plants she watered every Sunday, sat their wedding photo in a silver frame. 6 years ago. She was laughing in it, head tilted back, mouth wide open, her hand on his chest, like she was steadying herself against the joy of the moment. He was not looking at the camera. He was looking at her. The photographer had tried to redirect him twice. Andre ignored him both times because Brianna Cole laughing was the best thing he had ever seen, and no stranger with a camera was going to make him look away from it. He stared at the photo from the floor now. 6 years. He was 38. She was 36. No kids yet. They had talked about it. She kept saying soon, and he kept saying, whenever you're ready. And the word soon had quietly stretched into something neither of them measured anymore. The front door opened at 11:32. He heard her keys hit the bowl on the entry table, heard her heels come off one at a time. She walked into the living room and paused when she saw him stretched out on the floor. "You okay?" she asked. But she was already moving past him toward the kitchen. Her voice was light, distracted, like she was asking out of habit instead of concern. "Long day," he said. She came back with a glass of water for herself, leaned down and gave him a hug that started with one arm and ended before the other one committed. He smelled her perfume, the good one, the Tom Ford she saved for client dinners, and underneath it, something else, something warm and unfamiliar that did not belong to their house. "I ate with the team after the presentation," she said. "You eat?" "Yeah." He hadn't. But she was already heading for the stairs, phone in her hand, thumb scrolling. "I'm gonna shower and crash," she said. "I'm dead." "Okay. Okay," she echoed. And then she was gone, her footsteps soft on the carpet above him, the bedroom door clicking shut. Andre lay on the floor for another 10 minutes. Then he unlaced his boots, set them by the door, toes against the baseboard, aligned, and went upstairs. Brianna was already asleep. She lay on her side, facing the window, the comforter pulled up to her chin. Her phone rested face down on the nightstand, its screen dark against the wood. Face down. She used to leave it face up. He did not know when that changed. He noticed it now, the way you notice a picture hanging crooked. Not enough to fix, just enough to see. He picked up her phone gently, plugged the charger into the port, and set it back exactly where it was, face down, the way she left it. He leaned over and kissed her temple. Her skin was warm. She smelled like cocoa butter now, the Tom Ford washed away. This version of her, sleeping, soft, still, was the one he trusted most, the one that felt like his. He pulled back the comforter on his side. Lay down. The sheets were cool against his arms. The ceiling was white and blank and told him nothing. Something sat in the center of his chest that he could not name. Not pain, exactly. Not suspicion. Just a weight, like a tool left on a high shelf that might not be secure. Something that could fall. Something that might have already shifted. He closed his eyes. She's tired. The job is new. She's adjusting. Give her time. Steady men wait. He breathed in through his nose, held it, let it go slow. He fell asleep. The permit killed the job at 1:15. Andre was standing on a ladder in a half-gutted office suite on the 4th floor when the foreman walked in with his phone in one hand and a look on his face that said nobody was getting paid for the rest of the day. City inspector had flagged the electrical permit as expired. Somebody in the general contractor's office had let the renewal lapse. Nothing moved until the paper was right, and the paper would not be right until Monday at the earliest. Andre climbed down, packed his tools into his bag with the same care he always used, each piece in its slot. The bag zipped and buckled, nothing loose, and drove home. The afternoon stretched ahead of him like an empty room. He thought about stopping at the gym, but his GI was in the wash. He thought about calling Darius, but his brother was on a job site in Virginia until Thursday. He thought about the estimate he owed for a residential panel upgrade in Decatur and decided he would work on it at the kitchen table. He turned onto his street at 1:51. Brianna's silver Audi sat in the driveway. He pulled his truck behind it and cut the engine. Looked at the car. Looked at the house. She had a meeting with a client group in Buckhead today. She had mentioned it Tuesday night while folding towels. The Whitmore account. Important. All-day thing. He remembered because she had asked him not to call during lunch. Maybe it ended early. Maybe she felt sick. There were a dozen reasons his wife could be home in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon, and every single one of them was ordinary. He got out of the truck, closed the door quietly, not sneaking, just the way he moved. Andre had never been a loud man. He unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house was still. The air conditioning hummed. Afternoon light came through the front windows and lay in long rectangles across the hardwood floor. Then he heard her. It came from upstairs. Not words at first, just her voice, low and warm and running like honey over something. Then a laugh, short, soft, and private. The kind of laugh that lives in the throat instead of the mouth. The kind that is not meant for an audience. Andre stood at the bottom of the stairs with his tool bag over his shoulder and his keys still in his hand. She laughed again. Then she spoke, and though he could not make out the words, he could hear the shape of them, slow, playful. A voice she was pouring into the phone like something precious. A voice with weight and want in it. A voice he recognized from years ago, from early in the marriage, from the first apartment, from nights when she used to call him during his lunch break just to hear him talk. He had not heard that voice directed at him in over a year. He stood there, his tool bag hung from his right shoulder, his keys pressed into his left palm. The stairs rose in front of him. 14 steps, carpeted. The third one from the top creaked on the left side. He had been meaning to fix it for months. He did not go up. He turned and walked into the kitchen, set his tool bag on the floor by the refrigerator, set his keys on the counter. He took a glass from the cabinet, the one closest to the sink, second shelf, the plain ones they used every day, and filled it from the tap. He pulled out a chair at the kitchen table and sat down. The water was cool. He drank half of it. He set the glass on the table and looked at his hands, both palms flat on the wood, fingers spread, completely still. He noticed that. He noticed the stillness, the way you would notice someone else's hands, with a kind of distant surprise. His heart was beating normally. His breathing had not changed. Everything inside him should have been shaking, and none of it was. 20 years on the mat had taught him something that most people never learn. The moment you feel the choke start to close is not the moment to thrash. It is the moment to get quiet, to assess the position, to find where the pressure is actually coming from before you spend energy fighting something you do not yet understand. He sat. He drank his water. The kitchen faucet dripped once every 40 seconds. He counted. 22 minutes later, Brianna came downstairs. She was wearing her silk robe, the green one, and her hair was wrapped. She turned the corner into the kitchen and saw him at the table, and her whole body flinched. Just for a half second. A catch in her step, a micro-freeze across her face, the kind of thing you would miss if you were not watching for it. Andre was watching for it. She recovered fast. He had to give her that. Her face reassembled itself in under 2 seconds, surprise melting into a warm, slightly sheepish smile that she pressed into her voice when she spoke. "Baby, what are you doing home?" "Permit issue," he said. "Job shut down early." "Oh, no." She pulled her robe tighter at the waist, touched her forehead with the back of her hand. "I actually left the office around noon. Headache. I think something's going around." He looked at her. She held his gaze the way you hold a heavy bag, with effort disguised as ease. "I'm sorry you're not feeling well," he said. "Yeah." She opened the refrigerator, took out a bottle of water she did not open, and held it against her chest. "I'm going to go lie down some more." "Okay." She left. Her footsteps went up the stairs. The bedroom door closed. And then, through the ceiling, faint but unmistakable, her voice again. Quieter now, careful, but there. Andre sat at the kitchen table. The faucet dripped. He sat there for 1 hour. He did not stand. He did not reach for his phone. He did not pound the table or press his fists against his eyes or say a single word to the empty room. He sat the way he had been taught to wait inside a bad position, still aware, conserving everything for the moment when movement would actually matter. Something had shifted, not broken, shifted, like a foundation that had been settling for months and had finally, in the space of a Wednesday afternoon, come to rest at its true angle. He could see the slope of it now. He could see where the cracks ran. Grief would come later. He was sure of that. It was somewhere behind him, big and slow, following at a distance like weather on the highway. It would arrive, and he would let it arrive. But not now. Now was for thinking. He thought about the Thursday nights. He thought about the cash withdrawals. He thought about the phone face down on the nightstand. He thought about the Tom Ford perfume on a woman who said she was eating with co-workers. He thought about the Whitmore account meeting in Buckhead that did not exist, or did exist and ended 4 hours ago, or never mattered at all. He assembled these things quietly, the way he assembled a circuit, each piece connected, each connection tested, the whole picture taking shape not through guessing, but through the careful and patient work of following the current to its source. When the hour was done, he stood. He picked up the glass, rinsed it under the tap, set it upside down in the drying rack beside the sink, perfectly centered on the rubber mat. He picked up his keys. He picked up his tool bag. He walked to the front door, put on his boots, and laced them with the same care he always used, tight across the top, double-knotted, toes against the baseboard when he was done. He opened the front door, stepped outside, pulled it shut behind him. His face, if anyone had been there to see it, showed nothing. Not anger, not sadness. Not the kind of cold, hard resolve that men in movies wear when they are about to do something dramatic. Just a man leaving his house on a Wednesday afternoon with a tool bag over his shoulder and somewhere to be. He got in his truck, started the engine, pulled out of the driveway. He did not look up at the bedroom window. The decision had already been made. 2 weeks passed. Andre said nothing. He went to work. He came home. He kissed Brianna on the forehead when she was close enough to kiss. He asked about her day and listened to the answers she constructed and nodded in the right places and said the right things. He was the same man she had always known. Steady, quiet, present. A man who fixed things and did not complain. But underneath the surface, he was cataloging. Thursday nights, she was gone by 6:30. Always a different explanation. Drinks with the team, a client dinner, her mother needing help with something around the house. She paid for things in cash now. Small amounts pulled from the ATM near her office, never more than 300 at a time. Always on days, she said, she was working late. Her phone stayed face down on every surface she set it on. And sometimes, past 11, when she thought he was asleep, she would laugh at something on that phone. Quiet and warm and meant for someone who was not in the room. Andre noticed all of it. He wrote none of it down. He did not need to. 15 years of reading wiring diagrams had taught him how to hold a schematic in his head. Every line and junction accounted for. Every connection mapped to its source. Brianna's patterns were simpler than a commercial panel. The current ran in one direction. He just had not been willing to trace it until now. On the 15th day, a Saturday, he was at Darius's place. The truck was a 2011 F-250 with a starter that had been grinding for a month. Andre was under the hood, sleeves rolled to his elbows, hands black with grease, while Darius sat on the porch steps drinking sweet tea and handing down tools when asked. The radio played low from inside the garage. The street was quiet. It was the kind of afternoon that felt like nothing could go wrong in it. Then the Range Rover turned the corner. It was black, new, the kind of vehicle that announced its price before it announced its driver. It rolled down the block slow, too slow for someone who knew where they were going, exactly slow enough for someone who wanted to be seen arriving. It stopped at the curb in front of Darius's house. The engine cut. The driver's door opened. Desmond Holt stepped onto the sidewalk like he had purchased it that morning. He was 6'2", and built broad through the chest and shoulders, the kind of frame that filled a doorway, and knew it. His clothes were deliberate. Linen shirt, tailored slacks, leather shoes that had no business on a residential street in the middle of the afternoon. A watch on his left wrist caught the sunlight and threw it back. Everything about him was designed to communicate one thing: I am above this. He looked at Andre, looked at the truck, looked at the grease on Andre's hands and the work boots and the plain gray t-shirt dark with sweat. Something shifted behind his eyes. A quick calculation, a sizing up that was over before it started. Whatever he had expected, Andre was smaller than it, in every sense. He smiled. You, Andre Cole? Andre straightened up from the engine, wiped his hands on a shop rag, did not step forward, did not step back. Yeah. Desmond walked up the driveway like he was crossing a lobby. He stopped 8 feet away. Close enough to talk. Close enough to be a problem. My name is Desmond Holt. He said it the way a man gives you a business card, like the name itself should do the work. I'm going to keep this simple because I respect your time, even if your wife doesn't. On the porch, Darius set his tea down. I'm in love with Brianna, Desmond said. She's in love with me, and she's carrying my child. Now, I know that's a lot to hear standing in a driveway, so I'll give you a minute. He did not give Andre a minute. He kept talking. The way I see it, you got 2 choices. You can make this easy. Sign what needs to be signed, take what's fair, walk away clean. Or, if you got a problem with any of that. He spread his hands wide, palms up, like he was offering something generous. You're welcome to handle it like a man. Your call. The street was quiet. The radio in the garage played something Andre could no longer hear. Darius stood up from the porch steps. He was 42, Army retired, and built like he had never stopped training. He came down the first step with his jaw set, and his eyes locked on Desmond with the flat attention of a man who had spent 18 years learning exactly how fast a situation could turn. Andre raised one hand. He did not look at his brother, did not turn his head. His eyes stayed on Desmond while his left hand came up, palm out, and held in the air between the porch and the driveway. Darius stopped. The hand stayed up for 2 seconds. Then Andre lowered it. Okay, Andre said. Desmond blinked. Okay, what? There's a church on Lawson Road. Mount Calvary Baptist. Parking lot out back is empty after 5. Andre folded the shop rag once, then again. Set it on the fender of the truck. I'll be there at 7. Desmond laughed. It was a short, hard sound, more surprise than humor. He looked at Andre the way a man looks at something that just made his day easier. An electrician, Desmond said, shaking his head. He was already walking back to the Range Rover. 7 o'clock. Don't keep me waiting. The door closed. The engine started. The black truck pulled away from the curb and rolled down the street the same way it had arrived. Slow, deliberate, making sure the whole block watched it leave. Darius came down off the porch. He stood next to Andre, and they both watched the Range Rover turn the corner and disappear. Tell me you're not serious, Darius said. I need you to bring your phone, Andre said. Fully charged. Record everything from the moment we get out of the truck. Don't stop recording until we leave. Andre, he grabbed first. That's how this works. He grabs first, and you have it on camera. Darius studied his brother's face. Whatever he saw there was enough. He nodded once. I'll drive, Darius said. The Mount Calvary Baptist Church parking lot sat behind the building, shielded from Lawson Road by a row of overgrown crepe myrtles and a chain-link fence with a gate that nobody ever locked. The asphalt was cracked and sun-bleached. A single floodlight mounted on the church's back wall lit the space in a flat white wash that turned everything into sharp edges and hard shadows. Desmond was already there. He leaned against the Range Rover with his arms crossed, and two men standing on either side of him. Both were big. Both were dressed like they had come from somewhere nicer than a church parking lot. They stood, with the loose, expectant posture of men who had been told they were about to watch something entertaining. Desmond had changed clothes. Athletic pants, a compression shirt that showed every line of his shoulders and chest, training shoes. He had dressed for this. He had thought about what to wear. Andre got out of Darius's truck in the same gray t-shirt and work boots he had been wearing all day. Darius stepped out the other side. His phone was already up, already recording. Desmond pushed off the Range Rover and walked to the center of the lot. His two friends fanned out slightly, not flanking, just positioning themselves for the best view. "You actually came," Desmond said. He was smiling, loose, rolling his shoulders like a man warming up for a light workout. "I respect that. I really do. Most men in your situation would have just signed the papers." Andre stopped 12 feet away. His hands hung at his sides. His weight sat evenly on both feet. Not a fighting stance, not anything a casual observer would recognize as preparation. Just a man standing still. "Whenever you're ready," Andre said. Desmond tilted his head. Then he came forward. He moved the way big men move when they have always been the biggest man in the room. Direct, chest first, chin high. He closed the distance in 3 fast strides and reached for Andre's shirt with both hands, grabbing for the collar, pulling him in the way you pull someone into something they cannot escape. His hands found the fabric. That was the last thing he controlled. Andre's right hand came over Desmond's left wrist, not slapping it away, not fighting the grip, but accepting it, using it. His hips dropped 6 inches in a motion so fast it looked like the ground had pulled him down. His right leg swept behind Desmond's front ankle at the exact moment his shoulder drove forward into Desmond's sternum. And the geometry did what geometry always does. Desmond's feet left the ground. He landed flat on his back on the asphalt with a sound like a bag of concrete dropped from a loading dock. The air left his lungs in a single hard grunt. Before his hands could even come up, Andre was already past them, sliding behind Desmond's head, left arm threading under the chin, right hand locking the grip behind the neck, rear naked choke, textbook. The kind they teach on day 1 and spend 20 years refining. 4 seconds. Start to finish. Desmond's hands flew to Andre's forearm. He pulled. He twisted. He bucked. None of it worked. The choke was sunk, and Andre's hips were heavy, and his back was arched at exactly the angle that turns a man's own panic into the pressure that puts him to sleep. 6 more seconds. Desmond's hands stopped pulling. His body went slack. Andre held the position for 1 additional breath, not out of cruelty, but out of precision. He knew the difference between unconscious and resting. He felt the weight change. Then he released. He stood up, straightened his shirt, wiped the parking lot grit off his forearms with 2 calm passes of his hands. Desmond lay on the asphalt, breathing but blank. His 2 friends had not moved. They stood exactly where they had been standing 10 seconds ago, their mouths slightly open, their hands at their sides, looking at Andre the way you look at something you just realized you fundamentally misunderstood. Darius had not moved either. His phone was steady. The red recording indicator glowed in the dark. Andre looked at the 2 friends. They stared back. "He started it," Andre said. "You both saw that." Neither of them said a word. On the ground, 2 feet from Desmond's open hand, his phone lay face up on the asphalt. He had set it to record before the fight, propped on the Range Rover's bumper, angled toward the center of the lot. When he had charged forward, it had fallen. The screen was cracked, but the camera was still running, the little red dot blinking steadily in the corner. Darius walked over and picked it up. He looked at the screen, then carried it to Andre. Andre took it. He studied the footage for a moment. The angle was clear, the audio would be clean, and Desmond's aggressive approach was unmistakable. Andre crouched down and set the phone on the asphalt in front of Desmond, who was starting to stir, his eyes half open and unfocused, one hand reaching weakly for the back of his own neck. Andre stayed low, close enough for Desmond to hear every word. "Third degree," he said. 20 years. "You should have asked around." He stood, turned, walked to the truck, got in the passenger side and closed the door. Darius was behind the wheel 10 seconds later. He started the engine but did not pull out yet. He sat there for a moment, both hands on the steering wheel, staring through the windshield at the parking lot, where Desmond Holt was now sitting upright on the asphalt with his head in his hands and his two friends standing over him like men who did not know what to do next. "What now?" Darius asked. Andre stared straight ahead. His hands rested on his thighs. His breathing was even. His face gave away nothing except the faintest tension along his jaw. Not anger, but the first visible sign that the man behind the stillness was already working 3 moves ahead. "I need to call a lawyer," Andre said, "and I need to find out exactly how long this has been going on." Darius nodded, put the truck in reverse, pulled out of the lot. The fight was not the war. It was the opening move. Andre's eyes opened at 4:47 a.m. The bedroom was still dark. Brianna lay on her side with her back to him, the comforter pulled up to her chin, her breathing slow and even. Her phone sat face down on the nightstand, the way it always sat now. He watched the shape of her shoulder rise and fall twice. Then he got up without making a sound, picked up his clothes from the chair where he had laid them out the night before, and dressed in the hallway. He went downstairs, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with his phone in his hand, and the house quiet around him. The number was in a text from Darius, sent at 11:38 the previous night. No name attached, just 10 digits and a single line. "She's the one Marcus used. She's good." Andre dialed. 4 rings, then voicemail. A woman's voice, clear, professional, unhurried. "You've reached the office of Fatima Osei, attorney at law. Leave your name, number, and a brief description of your matter. I will return your call within 1 business day." "This is Andre Cole," he said. "I need to discuss a divorce. The situation is time-sensitive. I'd appreciate an appointment as soon as possible." He left his number, ended the call, set the phone face up on the table and drank his coffee in the silence. Upstairs, Brianna did not stir. Fatima Osei's office occupied the second floor of a converted duplex on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, between a tax preparation service and a barber shop. The waiting area had 4 chairs, a water cooler, and a single framed print of Accra at sunset. No magazines, no television. The space said exactly what it needed to say. People came here for work, not comfort. She called him back within 6 hours. They met 3 days later, on a Wednesday afternoon. Andre took a half-day from the job site and told no one where he was going. Fatima was younger than he expected. 39, maybe. Natural hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, a legal pad already open on the desk when he sat down. Her handshake was firm and brief. She did not ask him how he was feeling. She did not offer sympathy. She sat, uncapped her pen, and looked at him the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray. "Tell me what you want," she said. Andre placed both hands flat on the desk. "Everything I'm entitled to. Documented completely. Delivered precisely." She studied him for a moment. Something shifted behind her eyes. Not warmth, exactly, but recognition. She had sat across from a lot of men in that chair. Most of them came in angry and left confused. This one was neither. "How long have you been married?" 6 years. "Children?" "No." He paused. "She's pregnant." "It isn't mine." Fatima wrote that down without blinking. "Do you know the father?" "I do." Is there documentation of the affair? Messages? Photos? Witness testimony? I have video of a physical altercation he initiated. My brother recorded it. The other party also recorded it on his own phone. Both recordings show him as the aggressor. She wrote that down too. Then she set the pen down and leaned back. I need to ask you about finances. Walk me through every joint account, every shared asset, every piece of property with both your names on it. Andre listed them. A joint checking account at Regions Bank. A shared savings account they had opened when they bought the house. The house itself, a 3-bedroom in Collier Heights, with both names on the deed and $114,000 remaining on the mortgage. His truck, paid off. Her car, 18 months left on the loan. A retirement account in his name only. A smaller one in hers. Fatima listened to all of it, writing steadily. When he finished, she asked one more question. Have you noticed anything unusual in the joint accounts? Withdrawals you didn't authorize? Spending patterns that don't match what you were told? Andre paused. I haven't looked closely. Not yet. Look closely, she said. Pull 6 months of statements from both joint accounts. If she's been redirecting money, I need to see the pattern before I file. Can you do that before our next meeting? I can do that. Good. She capped her pen. Mr. Cole, I want to be straight with you. Based on what you've described, the affair, the pregnancy, a possible financial trail, you have a strong position. But strong positions only hold if we document everything before the other side knows we're looking. Right now, your greatest advantage is that she doesn't know you've been to this office. Do you understand? Yes. How long can you maintain that? Andre looked at her. As long as I need to. She held his gaze for a beat. Then she nodded. Then we move quietly. I'll prepare the filing, but we hold service until you tell me you're ready. Use the time. Thursday evening, Brianna left at 6:15. She stood in the bathroom doorway while Andre sat on the edge of the bed, untying his work boots. Her reflection moved in the mirror behind her. Earrings going in, a spray of perfume at the base of her throat. The careful assembly of a woman going somewhere she wanted to look good for. I'm meeting Dana and Keisha for dinner, she said. Might be late. Don't wait up. Have a good time, Andre said. He did not look up from his boots. He listened to her heels on the stairs, the jingle of her keys, the front door opening and closing, her car starting in the driveway, then the sound fading until the house was just his. He waited 10 full minutes. Then he went to the desk in the spare bedroom where they kept the household paperwork. The bank statements were filed in a manila folder in the second drawer, organized by month. Brianna had always handled the filing. She was meticulous about it. Everything labeled, everything in order. The organization made what he found even harder to miss. He spread 6 months of statements across the kitchen table, the same table where he had sat for an hour the day he heard the voice upstairs. He started with the most recent month and worked backward. It took him 20 minutes to find the pattern. Cash withdrawals, ATM pulls mostly, $200 on a Thursday in October, $300 on a Thursday in September, $200 again 2 weeks later, then $250, then $300, always on Thursdays, always on the days she was out for the evening, never on the credit card, never traceable to a purchase, just cash, pulled clean from the joint checking account and spent somewhere he was never meant to see. He went back further, past the 6 months Fatima had asked for. He pulled 12 months, then 18. The pattern held like a heartbeat, steady, predictable, and hidden in plain sight under a life that was supposed to be shared. He pulled out his phone and opened the calculator, added each withdrawal one at a time. His thumb moved slowly across the screen, deliberate as a man laying bricks. The total settled on the screen like a verdict. $11,340, $11,340, pulled from an account He put 80% of his paycheck into every 2 weeks. Money that was supposed to be for the mortgage cushion, for the emergency fund, for the future they were building together. Andre stared at the number. He did not flip the table. He did not raise his voice to an empty house. His jaw tightened once and released. That was it. That was the entire visible reaction. He photographed every page, both sides, every statement, every line he had circled in light pencil. He shot them in order, month by month, under the kitchen light. The images were crisp and evenly lit, because Andre Cole understood that documentation is only useful when it is legible. When he was done, he gathered the statements, squared the edges, and returned them to the manila folder. He placed the folder back in the second drawer in exactly the position he had found it. He closed the drawer. He sat back down at the kitchen table, opened his messages, typed one text to Fatima Osi. "I have the documents. I'll bring everything to our next meeting." Her reply came 4 minutes later. "Good. Thursday, 2 p.m. Same office." He set the phone down. The house was quiet. The kitchen light hummed the way kitchen lights do when there is no one else in the room to notice. From where he sat, he could see the wedding photo on the far wall of the living room, the one where Brianna was laughing and he was looking at her instead of the camera. He had loved that photo once. He had loved the man in it too, the one who believed that steady hands and steady love were enough to keep anything standing. He looked at it now and felt something he had not expected. Not grief, not the sharp, hollow ache that had lived in his chest for weeks. Something cleaner, something with edges, clarity. $11,000 does not disappear by accident. 22 months of lies do not sustain themselves without effort. The woman in that photograph had worked hard to betray him. She had planned it, funded it, and maintained it with a discipline he might have admired if it had been pointed at anything other than his destruction. He stood, rinsed his water glass, and set it in the rack, turned off the kitchen light. He walked past the wedding photo without stopping, went upstairs, brushed his teeth, got into bed. He was asleep before Brianna came home. Fatima spread the withdrawal timeline across her desk like a surgeon laying out instruments. She had organized Andre's photographs into a chart. Dates on the left, amounts in the center, Brianna's stated whereabouts on the right, where Andre had provided them. "The Thursday pattern starts here," Fatima said, tapping a date 14 months back with the tip of her pen. "Before this, the withdrawals are scattered. Random amounts, random days. But right here, mid-March of last year, they lock into a rhythm. Every Thursday, sometimes every other Thursday, like clockwork." Andre leaned forward and studied the chart. She was right. The shift was clean. Before March, the money moved like someone testing the water. After March, it moved like someone who had a standing appointment. "What changed in March?" Fatima asked. "New job? New routine? Anything in her schedule that shifted around this time?" Andre sat back. He did not answer immediately. He was doing what he always did, running the timeline backward through his memory the way he would trace a circuit, looking for the point where the current changed direction. Then he found it. "Her mother," he said. Around that time, her mother started calling more, asking Brianna to come by and help her with things around the house, errands, doctor's appointments, stuff like that. "How often?" "Every week, sometimes twice." "And you?" "I offered every time. Brianna said it was a mother-daughter thing. Said Patrice preferred it that way." Fatima watched him. She did not ask the next question out loud. She did not need to. Andre looked at the chart one more time. Then he stood. "I'll handle this part myself." He did not call ahead. He drove to Patrice Whitfield's house straight from Fatima's office, still in his work jacket, the cab of his truck smelling like copper wire and coffee. Patrice lived in a neat brick ranch off Campbellton Road, the kind of house that was always clean, always warm, always had something cooking, even when no one was expected. She had lived there alone since Brianna's father left when Brianna was 9. The yard was trimmed. The porch light was on. Andre knocked twice and waited. Patrice opened the door with surprise on her face that she covered quickly. She was a small woman, 62, with careful posture and careful hair, the kind of person who managed every visible surface of her life with intention. "Andre, I didn't know you were coming by. I should have called," he said. "Do you have a few minutes?" She studied him for half a second longer than was natural. Then she stepped back and held the door open. "Come in. Let me put some tea on." He sat at her kitchen table. The kitchen was small and spotless. White tile, a fruit bowl on the counter, a calendar on the wall with appointments written in her neat handwriting. She set a cup of tea in front of him without asking how he wanted it. She always made it the same way. He had never corrected her. Patrice sat across from him with her own cup cradled between both palms. She smiled, but her eyes were already working, already measuring. "How's Brianna doing? She hasn't called me since Sunday." Andre did not touch the tea. He placed his hands flat on the table and spoke the way he explained wiring diagrams to his apprentices. Clear, measured, one fact at a time. March 14th, last year. That's when Brianna started going out every Thursday night. She told me it was dinner with friends. Dana and Keisha, usually. Sometimes you. He paused. The weekend of April 22nd. She told me she was in Memphis for her cousin Tamara's bachelorette party. I called Tamara the following week to ask how the wedding planning was going. Tamara said the bachelorette was in June. Patrice's cup stopped halfway to her mouth. June 7th, Andre continued. Your cookout, the one in the backyard. I was working a Saturday job and came late. When I got there, Brianna was standing by the grill with a man I hadn't met. She introduced him as a colleague, a work friend named Desmond. He watched Patrice set the cup down. Her fingers were careful and slow, the way people move when they are trying very hard to control what their body gives away. I didn't think about it then, Andre said, but I've been thinking about it now. The way they were standing, how she moved when I walked up, how she put space between them like she was adjusting furniture. The kitchen clock ticked on the wall behind him. Patrice's hands settled around her cup again, but she was no longer drinking from it. She was holding it like a barrier. Andre, I need you to tell me what you know, Patrice. His voice had not changed. Not in volume, not in temperature. It was the same steady tone he had used since he walked in. That was what broke her. Not anger, not accusation, but the absolute stillness of a man who already knew the answer and was giving her one chance to say it herself. Patrice looked down at the table. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. When she spoke, the social composure she had maintained for 62 years thinned like paint in the rain. I didn't introduce them, she said. I want you to know that. I had nothing to do with how they met. Andre said nothing. She brought him to the cookout. Told me he was someone from a work conference. But I saw them, Andre. I saw the way she looked at him, the way she laughed, the way she touched his arm when she thought nobody was watching. Patrice's voice thinned. I know what that looks like. I lived through it myself with her father. She took a breath. It was unsteady. I pulled her aside before you got there that day, in the kitchen. I asked her directly. She told me it was nothing. I told her I wasn't stupid. She got upset. She said it was complicated. She said she was figuring things out. She asked me to stay out of it. And you did, Andre said. It was not a question. Patrice's chin dipped. She's my daughter. She's your daughter, Andre repeated. And I was what? Patrice opened her mouth and closed it. The question sat between them on the clean white table, like something spilled. I told myself it wasn't my marriage, she said quietly. I told myself you two would work it out, or you wouldn't, and either way, it wasn't my place to— 14 months, Andre said. You knew for 14 months. She did not deny it. She couldn't. The dates he had laid out were too precise, too clean, and Patrice was too smart to insult both of them by pretending otherwise. "I didn't know about the money," she whispered. "I didn't know about the baby. She didn't tell me any of that." "But you knew she was lying to me. Every Thursday, every excuse, every time she said she was helping you with errands." Andre's voice remained level, completely level. "You answered your phone when she needed an alibi, didn't you?" The silence that followed was the loudest sound in the kitchen. Patrice's eyes were wet. She reached across the table toward his hand. He moved it to his lap before she got there. Not fast, not angry, just a withdrawal so precise it said everything his voice had not. "Andre, please. I should have told you. I know that now. I was trying to protect her. You were in my home every holiday for 6 years." Andre pushed his chair back and stood. The legs scraped against the tile. "I never disrespected you once." Patrice looked up at him. The tea sat untouched in front of his empty chair, still full, still warm. He had not taken a single sip. He walked out of the kitchen, down the short hallway, through the front door. He did not slam it. He pulled it shut behind him with the same care he used when leaving any room. Deliberate, quiet, and final. He sat in his truck outside Patrice's house, with both hands on the steering wheel and the engine off. The porch light was still on. Through the kitchen window, he could see Patrice sitting exactly where he had left her. She had not moved. The untouched cup of tea still sat across from her like a ghost at the table. Andre stared at the steering wheel. A dull ache spread through his chest. Not sharp, not new, but deeper than anything Brianna's phone call or the bank statements had produced. This was different. This was the specific pain of discovering that the ground you thought was solid had been hollow for over a year, and the people standing on it with you had known the whole time and never said a word. He had been more alone than he understood. Not just betrayed by his wife, but surrounded, at holidays, at cookouts, at Sunday dinners in that small kitchen, by people who had collectively decided that Andre Cole did not need to know the truth about his own life. Patrice had watched him carry dishes to her sink, fix her garbage disposal, change the batteries in her smoke detectors. She had hugged him at Christmas. She had looked him in the face and let her daughter lie to it. He turned the key. The engine caught. The dashboard lit up blue in the dark. He pulled away from the curb and drove home. Andre's eyes opened at 4:47 in the morning. The bedroom was still dark. Brianna was asleep beside him, turned away, one hand curled under her pillow, the same position she always slept in now, facing the wall, her back a boundary line drawn down the center of the mattress. He did not lie there. For months, this had been the pattern. Wake early, stare at the ceiling, feel the weight of everything unnamed pressing down on his ribs like a knee, wait for the day to become something he had to carry before he had even stood up. Not today. Andre swung his legs off the bed, set his feet on the cool hardwood, and stood. He moved through the dark bedroom without turning on a light. He knew every surface, every distance, every obstacle between the bed and the door. He had wired this house himself when they bought it, ran new circuits through every room, replaced every panel, grounded every outlet. He knew its bones better than anyone alive. He dressed downstairs, work pants, a clean gray t-shirt, boots by the door. He made coffee in the dark kitchen with the overhead light off, just the blue glow of the microwave clock illuminating the counter. He drank it standing at the sink, looking out the window at nothing. The backyard was a black rectangle. The fence he had built 2 summers ago was a faint line against the slightly lighter sky. At 6:15, he called Ray Boone. Ray was his union rep, a heavy-voiced man in his late 50s who had been with the IBW local for 23 years and knew every electrician in the region by first name and license number. Andre had his cell because Ray gave it to every member who showed up on time and didn't cut corners. Andre had never missed a callback in 15 years. Ray picked up on the second ring. Andre, early for you on a weekday. What's going on? I want to talk about going independent. My own shop. What do I need that I don't already have? A brief silence. Then Ray laughed, not mocking but genuinely surprised. Brother, you've had your master's license for 3 years. You've got more field hours than half the contractors I certify. You need an LLC, liability insurance, a bond, and a business account. That's it. The rest is just paperwork and a lease. What about city contracts, school work, municipal jobs? With your record, you'd qualify for the small business bid list inside 60 days. I can send you the packet today. Ray paused. You serious about this? I'm serious. Good. Should have happened 2 years ago. Andre hung up and stared at the phone in his hand. 2 years ago. 3 years ago. He had first mentioned the idea to Brianna over dinner at this same kitchen table. A Tuesday night, her favorite pasta on the stove, a notebook where he had roughed out startup costs, and a timeline. She had listened, she had nodded, she had said all the right things about it being a great idea someday. Then she had listed the reasons it was not the right time. The mortgage, the risk of leaving steady union work, the market being soft. She had been persuasive because she was always persuasive. And he had been patient because he was always patient. He never brought the notebook out again. She never asked about it. He thought about that now. 3 years of an idea sitting in the back of his mind like a tool on a shelf, gathering dust because the person he trusted most kept finding reasons to leave it there. Not because the idea was bad, because his growth was never something she factored into the future she was building. Her future had different materials in it, different plans, a different man. Andre rinsed his coffee cup, dried it, set it on the rack. He sat at the table with his laptop and opened the Secretary of State's business filing page. The form was simple. Business name, registered agent, business address. He used Darius's for now. Organizer name. He typed the business name first. Mays Electric, LLC. His grandmother, May Louise Cole, a woman who raised 2 boys in a 3-bedroom house in East Point, Georgia, on a cafeteria worker's salary. She kept a garden in the backyard that produced tomatoes the size of a man's fist. She ironed Andre's shirts for his first job interview and told him the same thing she told him every morning before school. You don't have to be the loudest. You just have to be the one still standing when the loud ones sit down. She died 11 years ago. Andre still kept her photograph in his wallet, not behind a card slot, but loose, so he could pull it out and hold it flat in his hand when he needed to remember where his discipline came from. He typed in the remaining fields, paid the filing fee, hit submit. The confirmation page loaded. A small green check mark, a reference number, a sentence that read, "Your filing has been accepted and is being processed." Andre printed the confirmation page, folded it once, and slipped it into the inside pocket of his work bag. He worked a full shift that day, a retrofit at an office complex on the west side, pulling old aluminum wiring out of walls and replacing it with copper. Tedious, physical work that required focus and steady hands. He was good at it. He had always been good at it. His foreman, Marcus, told him once that Andre was the only electrician on the crew who made the work look like it was thinking for him instead of the other way around. At lunch, he sat alone in his truck and ate a sandwich he had packed that morning. He looked at the confirmation page one more time. The green check mark. The reference number. Mays Electric, LLC. He folded it back into his bag and finished his food. Brianna texted him at 2:15. "Hey, what time will you be home tonight?" He typed back. "Around 6. She sent a thumbs-up emoji. He stared at it for 3 seconds. 6 months ago, that small gesture would have been enough. Proof that she was thinking of him, that the machinery of the marriage was still turning. Now it looked like what it was. Management. a check-in designed to maintain the architecture of a life she had already left. He put the phone down and went back to work. That evening, at 7:40, Darius called. Andre was in the garage, standing at his workbench, organizing his personal tool inventory. It was something he did when he needed to think with his hands, sorting sockets by size, testing the spring tension on his wire strippers, wiping down the handles of his lineman's pliers. The garage smelled like WD-40 and clean concrete. His GI bag hung from a hook on the wall next to a framed photo of his first competition. 19 years old, 60 pounds lighter, white belt tied wrong. He picked up on the first ring. "What do you have?" Darius's voice was even, the way it got when he was delivering a briefing instead of having a conversation. Andre recognized the register from 20 years of knowing his brother. "I talked to Calvin Meeks today. You remember Cal? He does commercial property assessments downtown, title searches, valuations, debt audits. He owed me a favor from that security job last year." "I remember Cal." "So, Desmond Holt's big project, the mixed-use development on Monroe and 8th, Cal pulled the public filings. The project is leveraged heavy. Real heavy. Desmond's got a primary investor, a firm called Piedmont Capital Group. They put up 70% of the development financing." Andre set down the socket wrench he was holding. 70%? 70. And here's what matters. Cal looked at the partnership agreement. The portions that are attached to the public filing. Piedmont Capital has a morality clause, standard language for conservative institutional money. Basically says, if any principal in the project engages in conduct that creates legal exposure, reputational risk, or public embarrassment for the fund, Piedmont can trigger a review and pull their commitment. Andre leaned against the workbench. He said nothing for several seconds. The garage was quiet except for the faint tick of the fluorescent light overhead. "There's more," Darius said. "Cal connected me with a woman named Yolanda Price. She works in property management in Atlanta. She didn't know Desmond personally, but she knew the situation. About 3 years ago, Desmond was involved with a woman down there. Married woman. Similar setup. He moved in fast, made promises, got comfortable. When the husband found out, Desmond's lawyers came in with a settlement offer. Cash payment, full non-disclosure agreement, sealed terms. The woman took the money. The husband signed. The whole thing disappeared." Andre's jaw tightened. Not much. Just enough that Darius would have seen it if he were standing in the room. "He's done this before," Andre said. "He's done this before. Same playbook. Find a woman in a marriage. Make her feel like she's upgrading. When it blows up, contain the damage financially. Pay off the husband. Silence the wife. Move to the next city. Does Fatima know any of this?" "Not yet. I got Cal's documentation, the filing records, the partnership clause language, and a summary of the Atlanta situation with dates and the property records that tie Desmond to the address where the woman was living. No names on the woman. NDA is tight, but the pattern is documented clean." Andre was quiet for a long moment. He reached forward and picked up the socket wrench again, turned it slowly in his hand. The chrome caught the light. "Cal also told me something else," Darius said. "Desmond's attorney, a guy named Franklin Marsh out of Buckhead, has been drafting a private settlement offer. Cash payout to you. Paternity acknowledgement. Non-disclosure clause. Standard package. Same structure as Atlanta. He hasn't sent it. He hasn't sent it. Cal's read is that Desmond doesn't think you know enough yet to make it necessary. He thinks the parking lot thing was the whole play. He thinks you're done." Andre set the wrench down on the bench, lined it up parallel to the edge, perfectly straight, the way he arranged every tool in his workspace. "He thinks I'm done," Andre repeated. His voice was completely flat. "That's his read. His read is wrong." The garage was silent for 3 full seconds. Then Darius spoke again, quieter now. "What do you need from me? Send me everything Cal gave you. The filings, the clause language, the Atlanta summary, all of it. Scanned, not photographed. I need it clean. I'll have it in your inbox tonight." "Good." Andre ended the call. He set the phone on the workbench next to the wrench and stood there. The fluorescent light hummed above him. The GE bag hung motionless on its hook. His grandmother's garden. That was what he thought about. The way she knelt in the dirt every morning before the sun got high, pulling weeds one at a time, patient and thorough, because she understood something most people didn't. You don't fix a garden by staring at it. You fix it by getting your hands into the soil and removing what doesn't belong. He was not angry. He had passed through anger somewhere between Patrice's kitchen table and the filing of the LLC. What lived in him now was something else, a calmness that had weight to it, that had edges. It was the same feeling he got on the mat when an opponent gave him the underhook and didn't realize what they had offered. The position was set. The structure was in place. Everything that came next was technique. Desmond had drafted a settlement, a cash payment designed to make Andre disappear the same way the man in Atlanta had disappeared. A check and a signature and a silence clause, because that was how Desmond understood the world. Everything had a price, and quiet men were always the cheapest to buy. He had no idea what he was dealing with. Andre picked up the phone again and dialed Fatima's number. She answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was crisp. She was still at her desk. He could hear papers in the background. "Andre, what's new?" "My brother has a contact in commercial real estate. He pulled documentation on Desmond's development project, financing structure, investor agreements, the full picture." Andre paused. He also found that Desmond did this before. A woman in Atlanta, 3 years ago. Married? He ran the same play. His lawyers drafted a settlement, paid off the husband, sealed it with an NDA. The whole thing went away. Fatima was silent for 4 seconds. When she spoke, her voice had not changed, but something behind it had sharpened. "Does your brother have documentation on the Atlanta situation?" Dates, property records tying Desmond to the address, and the partnership clause from his current investor that includes a morality provision. "A morality clause," Fatima said slowly. "Standard language. If a principal engages in conduct that creates legal exposure or reputational risk for the fund, the investor can trigger a review and pull their commitment." Another silence, longer this time. Andre could hear her pen stop moving. "Good," Fatima said. "Send me everything Darius has." The morning was ordinary. That was the point. Andre stood near the front door at 7:15 on a Wednesday, dressed in his work boots and a clean navy Henley, keys already in his right hand. His lunch bag sat on the entry table next to his phone. The house smelled like fresh coffee. Brianna was in the kitchen, pouring her first cup, wearing the gray silk robe he had bought her 2 Christmases ago. She had her hair wrapped. Her feet were bare on the tile. She looked comfortable. She looked like a woman who believed today would be like yesterday. Andre knew it would not. He had known for 6 days. Fatima had called him the previous Wednesday and told him the papers were filed, the service was scheduled, and the window would be sometime between Monday and Friday of the following week. She did not tell him the exact day. She said it was better that way. His reaction would be more natural if the timing surprised him too. He heard the knock at 7:18. 3 firm raps, professional, unhurried. Andre opened the door. A young woman in a navy blazer stood on the porch holding a manila envelope. She had a clipboard tucked under her arm and an expression that was polite and completely neutral. The face of someone who had done this hundreds of times. "Good morning. I'm looking for Brianna Cole." Andre stepped aside without a word. He left the door open and leaned against the hallway wall. keys still in his hand. Brianna came around the corner from the kitchen, coffee cup in hand, curious. "Can I help you?" "Brianna Cole?" "Yes." The woman extended the envelope. "You've been served. Have a good day." She turned and walked back down the porch steps before Brianna could respond. Her car was already running at the curb. Brianna stood in the doorway holding the envelope like it might be hot. She looked at Andre. He looked back. His face gave her nothing. She tore it open. Andre watched her eyes move across the first page. He watched the understanding arrive. Not all at once, but in layers, the way a stain spreads through fabric. Her lips parted. Her fingers tightened on the paper. The coffee cup in her other hand tilted slightly, and a thin line of brown ran down the side and dripped onto the tile. She did not notice. The color left her face in a slow wave, starting at her cheeks and moving outward until her skin looked ashen under the hallway light. She looked up at him. "What is this?" He said nothing. "Andre, what are you doing?" He let the silence hold. Then she came at him, not with her hands, with everything else. Her voice cracked open, and the words poured out fast and uneven, tumbling over each other the way they do when someone has rehearsed nothing, because they never believed this moment would arrive. "I was going to tell you. Andre, I was trying to find the right time. You don't understand. It's complicated. It's not what you think. I still love you. I have always loved you. I know I made mistakes, but we can talk about this. We can fix this. Please, don't do this. I'm sorry. I am so sorry." She was crying now. Real tears. He believed they were real. That did not change anything. He let her finish. He let every word land in the hallway and settle on the floor between them like dropped glass. He did not interrupt. He did not look away. He stood against the wall with his keys in his hand and his face perfectly still, and he gave her the full silence she had never given him. When she was done, when her breathing was ragged and the papers were shaking in her hand, he spoke. "How long?" She wiped her face with the back of her wrist. 8 months. It's been about 8 months. Andre tilted his head slightly. Just a fraction. The way he did on the mat when someone tried a technique they had not earned. 22 months, he said. "The first hotel charge was the weekend you told me you were in Memphis for your cousin's bachelorette party. The Marriott on Poplar Avenue. You paid with the joint card. $187. He paused. "I went back through everything, Brianna." Her face broke. Not the crying. That was already happening. This was different. This was the collapse of the last wall between what she had told herself and what was true. Her mouth opened, and nothing came out. Her eyes went wide, and then went somewhere far away, somewhere behind him, somewhere inside the realization that he had known, truly known, for longer than she could calculate, and had said nothing, and had watched, and had built his entire response in silence while she slept beside him. She did not deny it. Her face confirmed it before her voice ever could. Andre reached into his back pocket and pulled out a business card. He set it on the entry table next to his lunch bag. "Fatima Osi. She's my attorney. Her number's on the card. You should get your own lawyer this week." He picked up his lunch bag. He picked up his phone. He looked at Brianna one final time, not with anger, not with sadness, but with the quiet, settled expression of a man who has already made every decision this moment requires. "Take care of yourself," he said. He walked out the front door and pulled it shut behind him. The drive took 11 minutes. Andre did not turn on the radio. He did not call Darius. He did not call Fatima. He drove with both hands on the wheel and his eyes on the road, and the only sound in the cab was the engine and his own breathing, which was slow and even and deliberate. The commercial unit was in a light industrial strip on Decatur Street, a 1,200-square-foot space between a print shop and a plumbing supply warehouse. The lease was signed 10 days ago. The landlord had given him a good rate because Andre had rewired the man's rental property 2 years back and never overcharged him. He parked in front and sat in the truck for a moment. The signage was not up yet. The windows were bare. From the outside, it looked like nothing, an empty storefront waiting to become something. He got out and unlocked the front door. The space opened in front of him. Bare walls, white and clean, still smelling faintly of the fresh paint the landlord had applied before turnover. Concrete floor, swept, smooth. A single overhead fluorescent panel humming softly. No furniture, no tools, no people, just space. Clean, open, waiting. Andre stepped inside and let the door close behind him. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He opened it carefully. The LLC registration for Mays Electric, filed with the state 8 days ago. His grandmother's name printed in clean block letters across the top. He held it in both hands and looked at it. Then he looked up at the empty room. He exhaled. It came out slow and long from somewhere deep in his chest, and it carried with it something he had been holding for 22 months, a weight he had picked up at the bottom of those stairs and carried through every silent dinner, every Thursday night alone, every lie absorbed without flinching, every dollar stolen, every holiday where Patrice smiled at him across his own table knowing what she knew. All of it. He let it go in a single breath, standing alone in a room with nothing in it but possibility and his grandmother's name. For the first time in months, his chest felt open. His shoulders dropped a half-inch. His jaw unclenched. The fluorescent light hummed. The walls waited. The floor was clean. Andre Cole stood in the center of what he was building and breathed without weight. The call came on a Wednesday morning while Andre was threading conduit through a drop ceiling at the school renovation site. He set down the bender, pulled off one glove, and answered. Desmond's attorney reached out, Fatima said. No greeting. She never wasted time on those. They want a 4-way meeting. Desmond, his counsel, you and me. He wants to negotiate. Andre looked up at the ceiling grid. Dust floated in the light from the temporary work lamps. Schedule it, he said. Friday work? Friday works. She hung up. He put the glove back on and went back to the conduit. Fatima's office was on the second floor of a renovated brick building on Peachtree, above a tax preparer and a dentist. The conference room was small and functional. An oval table, 6 chairs, a window that looked out onto a parking deck. No artwork on the walls, no plants, just a room built for paperwork and the conversations that surround it. Andre arrived 15 minutes early. He wore a clean button-down, dark slacks, and the same quiet expression he wore everywhere. Fatima was already at the table with a legal pad, 2 pens, and a manila folder positioned precisely at her right hand. She nodded when he came in. He sat across from her and said nothing. They waited. At 10 o'clock exactly, the door opened. Desmond Holt walked in first. He wore a charcoal suit with no tie, a silver watch that caught the overhead light, and shoes that cost more than Andre's first truck. His shoulders were squared. His chin was up. He looked like a man walking into a room he intended to leave owning. His attorney followed, a tall, thin man in a dark blue suit, with a leather portfolio under his arm. He introduced himself as Gerald Pace, shook Fatima's hand, nodded at Andre, and sat down with the practiced calm of someone who had done this many times. Desmond sat across from Andre. He did not offer his hand. He did not say hello. He looked at Andre the way a man looks at a problem he has already solved in his head, with patience for the formality that remains. Gerald Pace opened his portfolio and removed a stapled document. He slid it toward the center of the table. My client would like to propose the following terms, Pace began. His voice was measured and professional. A one-time cash settlement of $75,000, payable to Mr. Cole upon execution. Formal acknowledgement of paternity by Mr. Holt. full financial responsibility for the child, including medical and educational costs, assumed entirely by Mr. Holt, and a mutual non-disclosure agreement binding both parties to confidentiality regarding all personal matters related to this situation. Pace folded his hands. Mr. Holt believes this is a generous and fair resolution that allows both parties to move forward cleanly. Desmond leaned back in his chair. He looked at Andre for the first time with something like directness, not hostility, but the comfortable superiority of a man offering charity. "I'm trying to make this easy," he said. "Nobody has to drag this out. Take the money. Move on with your life." The room was quiet. Andre looked at Desmond the way he looked at a student who had positioned incorrectly on the mat. Not with contempt, but with the patient recognition that this person did not understand what was about to happen. He let the silence sit for 3 full seconds. Then he reached beside his chair, picked up the folder he had brought in, and set face down on arrival, and slid it across the table. Desmond looked at it. His attorney looked at it. Neither moved. "Open it," Andre said. Gerald Pace pulled the folder toward himself and flipped it open. On top was a printed still from the church parking lot video. Desmond mid-grab, his hand on Andre's shirt, time-stamped in white letters at the bottom corner. Beneath it, a USB drive taped to an index card that read, "Full video, 4 minutes, 11 seconds. Desmond Holt, as clear aggressor." Pace turned to the next page. A letter on Fatima's letterhead, addressed to Brianna Cole's counsel, citing 18 months of documented cash withdrawals from the joint account totaling $11,340, with a detailed summary of civil fraud exposure under Georgia domestic relations law. The last page was a single-sheet summary. No letterhead, no signature, compiled from Darius's commercial real estate contact. It identified Desmond's primary investor by name. It quoted the morality clause in their partnership agreement verbatim. And at the bottom, in 2 clean paragraphs, it described the Atlanta situation, the previous affair, the private settlement, the non-disclosure agreement that bound a woman whose name was redacted. The final sentence noted that disclosure of a repeated pattern of conduct would constitute material breach under the existing investor agreement and trigger a full review of Desmond's partnership standing. Gerald Pace read every word. His face did not change, but the speed of his reading slowed near the bottom, and when he finished, he sat very still. Desmond was watching his attorney. The confidence had not left his face yet, but something behind it had shifted. A small tightening around the eyes, the way a building looks the same from the outside a full second after the foundation cracks. "I don't want your money," Andre said. His voice was level, unhurried, the same tone he used when explaining voltage calculations to apprentices. "I want the house equity. I want my retirement accounts left whole. And I want a clean exit. No NDA, no conditions, no ongoing contact." He paused. "Your attorney will find that Fatima's paperwork already accounts for all of it. Every number is documented. Every term is standard." He looked directly at Desmond. "Sign, and this folder stays in this room." The room went silent. The parking deck outside the window threw gray light across the table. The fluorescent above them hummed the same flat note as the one in Mays Electric. Gerald Pace leaned toward Desmond. He angled his body away from the table and spoke in a voice so low it was barely a murmur. Andre could not hear the words, but he did not need to. He watched Desmond's face instead. The shift was not dramatic. It was not a collapse or a reckoning. It was smaller than that. The quiet death of a man's certainty, visible only in the way his jaw tightened and his eyes dropped from Andre's face to the table surface and did not come back up. Pace straightened and cleared his throat. "We'd like a moment to—" "We don't need a moment." Desmond's voice was flat. "Stripped." He reached across the table and took the pen Fatima had placed beside the document she had already prepared. Andre's terms printed cleanly. Waiting in a second folder she now opened without commentary. Desmond signed on the indicated line. He did not read every page. He did not ask a single question. He signed the way a man pays a fine, quickly, to make it stop. He set the pen down. He stood. He buttoned his jacket with hands that were not quite steady. He did not look at Andre. He walked around the table, past the window, and through the conference room door without a word. Gerald Pace collected the original settlement proposal, the one that had never mattered, slid it into his portfolio, and followed his client out. The door clicked shut behind them. The room was quiet again. Fatima pulled the signed document toward her. She examined each page. She placed it inside a fresh folder, wrote the date on the tab, and set it on her legal pad. Then she closed the manila folder, the one with the video still and the investor summary and the Atlanta paragraph, and placed it in her desk drawer. She looked at Andre. There was nothing performative in her expression. But the corner of her mouth moved, just slightly, the nearest thing to satisfaction her professional composure would permit. "That went well," she said. Andre nodded. He sat for a moment longer, his hands resting on the table, his breathing even. The chair was uncomfortable. The light was flat. The parking deck outside was gray and ordinary. He stood. He pushed the chair in. "Thank you, Fatima. You did the work," she said. "I just organized it." He walked out of the conference room, down the narrow hallway, and through the glass door into the afternoon. The sun was high and direct. The air was warm. Traffic moved on Peachtree in both directions, steady and unhurried, the ordinary rhythm of a city that did not know or care what had just happened in a small room above a dentist's office. Andre stood on the sidewalk. He did not feel triumph. He did not feel grief. He felt finished, the way a wall feels after the last wire is pulled through, and the plate is screwed on, and the breaker is flipped, and the circuit is live and complete, and there is nothing left to add. He walked to his truck. He got in. He sat for a moment with his hands on the wheel. Then he started the engine and drove back to the job site. The house looked different, with half of it missing. Andre had spent the week moving in stages, a few boxes each evening after work, loaded into the truck bed and driven to the apartment he was renting month to month near the shop. He did not rush it. He took what was his and left what was shared, and did not argue over anything that could be replaced. The living room had a couch and a lamp, and nothing on the walls where his grandmother's photos had hung. The kitchen was untouched, her dishes, her coffee maker, the table. The hook by the front door was bare. The blue belt was already hanging at Mays Electric on a nail beside his license. Brianna had called on a Tuesday. Her voice was careful, the way a person sounds when they have rehearsed what they want to say, but are not yet sure the other person will let them say it. She asked for one meeting. No lawyers. Just them. Andre told her 1 hour. She arrived at 10 in the morning on a Saturday. She parked in the driveway, where she had always parked. She came through the front door the way she had thousands of times before. Except this time, she stopped in the entryway and looked at the gaps on the walls, the outline of dust where the wedding photo had been, the empty hook by the door. Her hand went to her mouth briefly, then dropped. Andre was already at the kitchen table. He had poured 2 glasses of water. He did not stand when she came in. She sat across from him. She was wearing a simple blouse and jeans. No jewelry, except the small gold studs her mother gave her. Her eyes were clear, but the skin beneath them was thin and dark. She looked like a woman who had not been sleeping well for a long time. Longer, maybe, than the divorce. She did not start with an apology. She started with something harder. "I was ashamed," she said. "Not of you. Of how small I felt, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from, so I decided it was coming from us." Andre said nothing. He watched her the way he watched everything that mattered, fully, without interruption. Desmond didn't make me feel like I was choosing something better, she continued. Her voice was steady but thin, like a wire pulled almost to its limit. He made me feel like I was already the person I kept trying to become, like I didn't have to keep working towards something, like I was already there. She paused. That was the lie I wanted to believe, and I chose it over the truth. She looked at the table, at his hands, at the glass of water he had poured for her that she had not touched. I know it wasn't your fault, Andre. I know that now. The kitchen was quiet. Sunlight came through the window above the sink and fell across the table in a long rectangle that neither of them sat inside of. Andre let the silence hold for a moment, not for effect, because what he was about to say had been sitting inside him for over 2 years, pressed flat under the weight of every shift he picked up, and every conversation he did not start, and every night he lay beside her, telling himself that patience was the same thing as love. I saw you pulling away, he said. His voice was calm, not cold, the voice of a man who had decided, finally, to stop protecting someone else from the truth. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was the job, or the stress, or that you just needed time. And when that stopped making sense, I blamed myself. Brianna's eyes came up. I picked up more shifts, he said. I thought if I brought in more, you'd feel more settled, more secure. I thought that was what you needed. He paused. I sat on Maze Electric for 3 years, Brianna. 3 years. Every time I brought it up, you had a reason to wait. The market, the timing, the risk. He looked at her without anger, without performance, and I loved you enough to keep waiting. Her chin dropped. Her breath caught in her chest. She pressed both hands flat on the table. I'm not saying this to change anything, Andre said. I'm saying it because I spent 2 years swallowing the truth to keep things smooth. I'm done doing that. The sunlight had moved. It touched the edge of her hand now. Andre leaned back in his chair. He looked at the woman he had married, her face open and raw and full of the things she should have said 2 years ago. He did not hate her. He did not pity her. He simply saw her clearly, the way morning light shows you exactly what a room looks like when you stop pretending the corners are not there. He picked you because you were already leaving, Andre said. That is the only kind of woman that works for a man like him. He did not raise his voice. He did not lean forward. He doesn't want a partner, Brianna. He wants someone to impress. She closed her eyes. Tears ran down both cheeks in clean, straight lines. Andre looked at his watch. He stood. He pushed his chair in the same way he always had. Both hands, even and square. The hour's up, he said. He walked to the front door and held it open. Brianna stood slowly. She wiped her face with the back of one hand. She picked up her purse from the chair beside her. She walked toward him and stopped in the doorway, close enough that he could smell the perfume she had always worn, the same one that had lingered in the living room the night everything was still intact. She did not say anything. There was nothing left that words could carry. She walked to her car. He stood in the doorway and watched her pull out of the driveway. The engine sound faded down the street and around the corner, and then it was gone. Andre closed the front door. He stood in the half-empty house. The walls had nail holes. The shelf by the stairs held nothing. The kitchen table sat in the light with 2 glasses of water, one untouched. He felt the last of it leave him, not like a door slamming, but like a breath held too long finally released. The tightness behind his ribs that had been there since the night he lay on the living room floor and could not name what was wrong. It loosened. It lifted. It was gone. He locked the front door. He checked the back. He set the thermostat down and walked through the house one final time. Not out of sentiment, but because he had always been the man who made sure everything was right before he left. He drove to the shop. 14 months later, Andre Cole pulled into the gravel lot at Maze Electric at 6:15 in the morning, the same way he had every weekday since the sign went up. The building was a single-story commercial unit on Decatur Street. Brick front, steel roll-up door on the side, 2 bay windows flanking the entrance. His grandmother's name was painted on the glass in clean black letters, arched slightly, with Electrical Contracting LLC beneath it in smaller type. He had picked the font himself. Simple. No flash. The kind of thing you trusted because it did not need to convince you. He unlocked the front door and turned on the lights. The shop smelled like coffee grounds and copper. The main floor was organized the way his mind was organized. Everything visible. Everything where it belonged. Tools hung on pegboard along the back wall. Each outline traced in black marker so you knew immediately what was missing. A long work table ran down the center, and spread across it were the blueprints for the Jefferson Elementary renovation. A city contract he had landed 6 weeks ago. The biggest job Mays Electric had taken on yet. Conduit runs, panel schedules, junction box placements, all marked in his handwriting. On the wall beside his desk hung 3 framed items: his black belt certificate, a photograph of his grandmother standing in her garden in 1987, squinting against the sun, holding a tomato the size of a softball, and the LLC registration document still in the same clear plastic sleeve it came in. By 7, the shop was full. Marcus arrived first, 24, second-year apprentice, always early. Then Terrence and David, both journeymen Andre had hired from his union network. Last was Sharon, who ran the office and the invoicing and who had told Andre during her interview that she did not tolerate disorganized paperwork. He hired her on the spot. They moved through the morning the way a crew moves when the leadership is quiet and consistent. No one raised their voice. No one needed to. Darius showed up at noon with a brown paper bag and 2 bottles of water. They set up folding chairs in the middle of the shop floor, the way they used to sit in their mother's kitchen when they were kids, knees wide, elbows on thighs, food balanced on laps. Darius had brought chicken from the place on Moreland. He handed Andre a thigh and 2 biscuits without asking what he wanted. "Shop looks good," Darius said, chewing. "Getting there." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Marcus walked past, carrying a spool of 12-gauge wire, and nodded at both of them. Darius nodded back. "Heard something this week," Darius said. He said it the way he said most things. Flat, no build-up. Desmond's Piedmont project officially went under. Investor pulled out. Audit flagged the Atlanta situation, and the morality clause did the rest. Andre tore a piece of biscuit and ate it. He's restructuring. Public filings and everything. Lost about 60% of his portfolio value in the last quarter. Darius took a drink of water. Him and Brianna are still together. On paper. But she's at Patrice's house most nights now. Baby's colicky. Doesn't sleep. Andre chewed slowly. He looked at the blueprints on the table across the room. "You want some more chicken?" he asked. Darius looked at him for a moment. Then he laughed, a short, quiet sound, and reached into the bag. 3 mornings a week, Andre trained at Iron Path Gym on Memorial Drive. He was there by 5:30, on the mat by 5:45, drilling the same fundamentals he had drilled for 20 years. Some mornings he rolled with the advanced students. Some mornings he just moved, slow, precise, feeling the geometry of each position the way a carpenter feels the grain of wood. On Tuesday and Thursday evenings, he taught. The beginner class had 12 students. The youngest was 9, a girl named Kayla, who weighed 70 pounds and had already learned to keep her elbows tight. The oldest was Carl, 47, an accountant who showed up to the first class in brand new GI pants and a t-shirt that said, "Tax season is my cardio." Carl had been stiff and terrified for the first month. This week, he landed a clean hip escape for the first time. His face afterward looked like a man who had just remembered something important about himself. Andre told every new class the same thing his instructor told him when he was 18, and angry, and had no idea what to do with any of it. "This is not about fighting," he said. "This is about understanding force, how to move with it, how to let someone else's push become the thing that puts them on the ground. You don't win by being the strongest person in the room. You win by being the person who sees what's actually happening." He was patient with them, all of them. He had time now. He was seeing someone. Her name was Nadine. They met at a city contractor coordination meeting. She ran a small HVAC company and had asked him a question about shared ductwork routing that turned into a 40-minute conversation in the parking lot afterward. They had been out 6 times. Dinners. A long walk through Piedmont Park where neither of them checked their phones. She asked real questions, not surface ones. She wanted to know why he named the business after his grandmother, what his favorite part of electrical work was, whether he was nervous teaching the jiu-jitsu class. And when he answered, she listened the way people listen when they actually want to know, leaning in slightly, not already forming their next sentence. He was learning something with her, something quiet and important, that his stillness was not armor. It was not something he wore to get through. It was just who he was, and the right person did not need him to be louder. Friday evening, 6:30. The crew was gone. The shop was clean. Andre set the alarm panel by the front door, stepped outside, and locked up. The air was warm and smelled like cut grass from the lot next door. He turned and looked back through the glass. The tools hung straight on the pegboard. The blueprints for Jefferson Elementary were spread on the work table, weighted at the corners with socket wrenches. Sharon's desk was neat, her invoicing binder closed and squared. The framed photograph of his grandmother caught the last of the daylight coming through the window, and for a moment she seemed to be squinting right at him, holding that tomato, daring him to waste what he had been given. His grandmother's name sat on the glass in clean black letters. He stood there for a few seconds, not remembering, not looking back, just seeing what was real, and knowing it was his. He got in his truck. He thought about the school job starting Monday, the panel upgrade in the East Wing, the new dedicated circuits for the computer lab. He thought about what he was making for dinner. He thought about Carl, the nervous accountant, and whether he would show up Tuesday for class. He hoped he would. The man was getting better. He just needed someone to be patient with him. Andre started the engine. He drove. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.